dimensions away from Deadpool 2 being called Deadpool Returns. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Deadpool 2, released in 2018. Deadpool 2 is directed by David Lynch this time, and is still written by Paul Warnick and Rhett Reese, this time around with Ryan Reynolds as the story credit. The movie once again stars Ryan Reynolds, this time and Marie Beckham, and of course, returning, of course, you have T.J. Miller, and of course, Dub Pender, and you have several of the cast from the first film returning as well. I forget their names. And of course, the newcomers include Cable, played by Josh Brolin, and Zazie Beetz, who plays Domino. And you also have the Juggernaut, who's voiced by Ryan Reynolds. And of course, you have Julian Assange, who plays, he said, Russell. And so basically, the movie is essentially picks up after Deadpool 2 sometime, where Deadpool 1, where Deadpool's just sitting there just killing assassins left and right and everything and enjoying himself. And then, of course, as he goes around on a cross-country murder trip killing a bunch of assassins and, bad people, he, of course, one of them, doesn't finish it off. And, of course, he ends up, that ends up biting him in the ass. The assassins come to his house and kill Vanessa. And he kills the last assassin, he ends up in a suicidal depression state where basically he ends up trying to off himself so many times to where eventually Cable, he gets, eventually after he almost succeeds, Colossus takes him to the X Mansion where they want to bring him into the X-Men. But of course his, craziness gets him thrown in prison, and of course as in a mutant prison, and where he meets Russell, who essentially one day will grow up to kill Cable's family, and Cable time travels back in time to essentially kill Russell as a boy, in almost like a Terminator style way. I really enjoyed this movie, and the movie essentially picks up. It's a Deadpool movie, but it at the same time it does exactly what the first one does, but in a bigger scope. I love the first Deadpool movie. This one I feel like I love it more because it has a lot bigger budget. You get to feel it. Like for instance, you have Cable, who I think Josh Brolin plays beautifully. And you have and it looks just like in the comic. And then of course you have Domino, who I think Zazie Beetz did a fantastic job. And of course I love Russell, who and basically and then how it ties to Mr. Sinister, where they have the Sinister, the Essex Corporation orphanage, and it basically ties into this bigger picture of the Sinister, Mr. Sinister. And then of course I like the idea that I also like the idea how Deadpool essentially is just doing the same thing. I like how it's just a montage of him killing himself in the movie, and there's even a super duper cut where you see more of like a montage of him offing himself. But I really enjoyed this movie. This movie's really funny, and when I heard they were gonna do it, I was really excited. I know that Tim Miller did not return because him and Ryan Reynolds had a dispute over the creative differences over the script, because Tim Miller wanted to do a more traditional superhero film, while Ryan Reynolds just wanted to do what they did with the last movie, but in a bigger scope. And so I feel like Ryan Reynolds had won, because this I side with him 100%, because it basically is like, okay, they kill off Vanessa, and then he basically just becomes Deadpool, and even a much more depressing Deadpool that just tries to off himself, and it's really funny. And then how he ends up and I really like the dynamic between Deadpool and Colossus, and then Deadpool and the cab driver Depender, who essentially I believe is on the verge of being a mass murderer, because he literally dreams about killing people left and right. He's like, want to taste the blood of my enemies, and it's just it's crazy. And I also like how they have the original Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Yumiko, her girlfriend, and basically, and I also like how they have a cameo from the X-Men, the First Class X-Men, who were essentially Beast close to the door. I thought that was great, and I know they shot on the set of X-Men Dark Phoenix, and that was at least the most positive thing that came out of Dark Phoenix. I do like that, how it's like a revenge story in a way, where it's you have Deadpool, who basically is in a depressing state because he lost his loved one, and you have Cable, who lost his family. He's gonna end up killing a child, and I like that idea that he's willing, he said this is, and he kind of paints Cable as the main villain, even though what Cable's doing is right, because one day this kid's gonna grow up to be a monster. And I just feel like that is what I like about it, because it's Deadpool thinks he can save this kid, and I really like that it balances the tone of being serious when it needs to be, but then being funny when it needs to be, and I really like how it balances that. I do like that there are some dark jokes in this movie, and I love a couple of jokes that made me laugh is especially when he's Can we get the job done? He goes, well, in a George W. sort of way. I thought that was a funny joke. And a joke also is like whenever, like, for instance, when, there is like so many jokes, especially one where Juggernaut says, he tells Colossus, I'm going to melt you down to make a cock ring out of you. I laughed so hard at that joke. That joke, I was just dying laughing every time because I watched it with my family. And, like, I watched it in theaters with my uncle, and then we watched at home with the family. And I remember watching that. My brother watches these things. He goes, "Oh, damn!" when he says that. I love. There's like a great fight scene too, especially in the theatrical cut between Juggernaut and Colossus, and I just love it. Like how, and like how Juggernaut is just like, "You commie motherfucker," and he's punched. I mean, that is just so great. That fight scene between them two is so great. I love how Juggernaut actually looks like the comics. I do wish his helmet was red. He had the red outfit. But I still love him in this movie, and I also like how Juggernaut Colossus has more to do in this movie besides just being like he's just a sidekick with like, oh, I'm a pacifist, and I thought that was really great also, and I really like how, there was how they introduced the X-Force, and like one character is just like, I'm a human, have no mutant abilities, and he goes, you're hired. I saw it's like just Peter, and then they have like one's the Vanisher, and it's just Brad Pitt cameo. It's just so funny, and it's just like that, and then everybody dies in the first 10 seconds, and they tricked everybody in the trailers, and they don't think they have a fight scene. Everybody dies in the first 10 seconds, and there's also a joke with Black Tom where it's just a white guy calls himself Black Tom, and then like Roy Wilson keeps thinking he's black because he says that, and he goes like at the beginning they're in prison, he goes, I'm Black Tom. And he goes, well, I'm White Wade Wilson. Yes. That joke made me laugh. And then of course, like how he has a prison pen. Russell had putting shit up his ass, and he's like, I got a prison pen. He's like, I don't care about your prison wallet. And he goes, they just stabbed me with a pen. It's like, and just like stuff like that. And of course, they have like, there's a lot of shocking jokes. Like there's a lot of pedophile jokes in this, and there are some that are funny. Like he's like when they're making jokes, he even runs like a fucking pervert too. He goes like a pedophile lost his laptop. It's like, there's a lot of great stuff. The movie has heart because it's about like Deadpool wants to be with Vanessa, and so he tries to kill himself and ends up being recruited, and then he ends up having to save this kid ultimately, and then he ends up saving this kid's life. We end up getting to be with Vanessa and then Cable, which I know some people could say it's redundant. Like, why didn't he just do this and this? But the idea is it's a comedy. It's not meant to be. But then when it has its serious moments, it does well. Like I really enjoyed like Cable as a whole, and I like how he is a character that you believe this character like truly has good intentions. He's not doing evil thing, but to save my world. And I like that aspect of it, and I like how Deadpool is like the moral compass of this movie. And and Domino's just kind of there for like jokes. Oh, I'm lucky, But like I do think this movie has a lot of heart in the heart between Deadpool. And it is really between Deadpool and Cable, because Cable wants to just save his wife. He wants to save his wife and kid from this villain. He's like, I have to kill this kid as a kid, but I'm doing this to save my family. And instead, he ends up sacrificing that to save Deadpool because he realizes that he was in the wrong the whole time. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful about this movie. It's about redemption. It starts out with revenge, and then it comes to redemption. And I think that's what I like about this movie. And it's not just, I know it has a lot of dumb jokes and everything in the movie, but it does have its heartfelt moments at the end. I think that's what really works for this movie. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a solid A-. Thank you so much.
Last but not least, Peter.
Any power you want to tell us about?
I don't have one. I just saw the ad.
You're in.